Yo, what's going on everyone? My name is Sixang, and today I want to talk about my favorite Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet. The newest region in the Pokemon series, Paldea, has introduced us to some pretty cool new Pokemon. Having played through both Scarlet and Violet myself, as well as completing the Pokédex, this is a topic that's been on my mind. I do want to clarify though that this list is not based on competitive viability, but rather who I think is cool and how much I use these Pokemon throughout my journey. And this list will only include new Pokemon and not Pokemon returning from previous generations. I've narrowed it down to a top 5 list of my favorite Pokemon, but before we get into that, I have a few honorable mentions. The first honorable mention on my list is Skeledirge, which is the fully evolved form of Fuecoco. Fuecoco was the starter I chose for my Scarlet playthrough, and I usually gravitate towards the fire starters, but my main playthrough was actually through Violet, so Fuecoco wasn't my go-to starter in Gen 9. And although Fuecoco and Skeledirge didn't make the cut for my top 5, I want to make it clear that I still really like these Pokemon. I love how we go from a super cute crocodile to one that is menacing and part ghost type. Skeledirge was one of my main fire Pokemon that I used, and having the utility of ghost type moves with mine was very convenient. The next honorable mention is Baxcalibur. This is a dragon and ice type Pokemon, and like Skeledirge, their utility was very much welcome. Even more so since ice moves are super effective against dragon type Pokemon, which to me made Baxcalibur more enticing than some of the other dragon options in the game. I think the biggest reason Baxcalibur didn't make my top 5 is because to evolve it from Arc to Bax, they need to hit level 54. This isn't a hard thing to accomplish, but towards the later parts of my playthroughs, my party was full and I didn't have space for another Pokemon like Baxcalibur. It's a sad but true kind of situation, but I hope to eventually use Baxcalibur in some endgame content. The last Pokemon I want to mention before we jump into the top 5 is King Gambit. Bisharp, in my opinion, is already one of the coolest looking Pokemon, and I think they did a good job creating a final evolution. They kind of look like a shogun or some kind of historic Japanese leader. You know they mean business when they don't even stand up during battle. I didn't really use them at all during my playthroughs, but their design is just so commanding that I had to include them in my honorable mentions at least. Alright, now that we've gone over these Pokemon, it's time to get into my top 5 favorite Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet. Starting off with number 5, Miraidon. Miraidon is the only legendary on this list, and as I mentioned before, Violet was the game I played for my main playthrough, so I spent a lot of time with this Pokemon. I do like both of the main legendaries from this generation, but I definitely enjoy the more futuristic style of Miraidon. And unlike any other Pokemon on this list, traversing with this Pokemon is pretty much mandatory. If you're not aware, Miraidon and Koraidon are the main mounts in Scarlet and Violet. Meaning, if you want to glide, surf on water, or just move around faster, using these Pokemon is essential. This probably sways my bias a significant amount, but even taking a step back and just looking at them aesthetically, I think Miraidon is really cool. Your trainer and this Pokemon also build a bond through the story, so that's another point towards them. Number 4 on my list is Tinkaton, and this Pokemon kinda took the internet by storm. I don't think I've seen more fan art than any other Pokemon from Gen 9, and I'd go as far to say it's a lot of people's favorite in this generation. Tinkaton is a fairy and steel type, which makes her a great choice against dragon type Pokemon, and even other fairy types. She was a staple to my playthrough in Violet, and really came in clutch in a lot of battles. Design-wise, yeah, she's just a little pink Pokemon with a giant hammer, but I think her simplicity is what makes her so appealing to people. It's also just comedic the fact that a Pokemon has a ginormous hammer. Like, how does she even carry that around? At number 3, I have to give this spot to my main starter Pokemon, Sprigatito. Personally, I've always been a big fan of cats IRL, so choosing a cat-type Pokemon as a starter was a fairly easy choice. Sprigatito's final evolution is Meowscarada, and just like the majority of Pokemon on this list, they have a second type, which in their case is Dark. A grass and dark type Pokemon proved to be useful to me, and Meowscarada was a part of my team all the way through the game. I think all 3 starters in this generation made a case for themselves, and although Quaxly seems to be the least popular of the 3, their final evolution is also useful and was a Pokemon I used throughout my Scarlet playthrough. All in all though, if I had to play through these games again, I would still go with Sprigatito. And now the runner-up on my top 5 list, Iron Valiant. I'm a huge fan of both Gardevoir and Gallade, so once I discovered Iron Valiant, you know I was hyped. To me, Iron Valiant takes some of the best aspects of Gardevoir's and Gallade's designs, while also looking like another possible evolution to Kirlia, in a different dimension obviously. Iron Valiant looks both menacing and elegant, 2 things that normally wouldn't pair together, but it works. Unfortunately, Iron Valiant is yet another Pokemon that I didn't really use during my playthroughs, as it appears very late into the game. I have plans to eventually train a competitive one and also hopefully find a shiny version. Overall, I will say I prefer the Paradox Pokemon in Violet over Scarlet because just like Miraidon, I enjoy the more futuristic styles. Alright, time for my number one favorite Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet. Can you guess who it is? My favorite Pokemon in Gen 9 is Ceruledge. Ceruledge is a version exclusive to Violet and is the evolved version of Charcadet. I'm not even joking when I say Ceruledge is the reason I chose Violet over Scarlet as my main game. I seriously just fell in love with their design and I knew I had to have them. Fire types are my favorite kinds of Pokemon in general, so the fact that Ceruledge was a fire and ghost type was just icing on the cake. It goes without saying they were a mainstay in my party as soon as I evolved them, and they were another great Pokemon to me on my journey through Paldea. Even though I've played through both versions of this game and have completed the Pokédex, there are still a ton of things I want to do. However, I'm waiting for these games to become compatible with Pokemon Home so that I can start breeding and training some competitive Pokemon. And graphical and technical issues aside, I had a lot of fun playing through the main story of this game, and I'm interested to see what kind of DLC they add to it in the future. And now that I've given my list of favorite Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, let me know down in the comments what are some of your favorites in Gen 9. I couldn't fit all my favorites into the list, so I'm really interested to see what opinions you guys have. Also, let me know if you've been doing post-game stuff and what your experience has been like. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more video game content from me. I plan on doing another Pokemon game review in February, and I also have a bunch of other stuff planned in between, so stay tuned. And if you're interested, you can follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Sixsang for updates and funny posts. Thank you so much for watching, hope you tune into the next one, and have a great rest of your day. Peace!